And Jen, I would just say that 10% is exactly why yesterday when everyone's like, I can't believe Jay Powell isn't going to cut rates. Remember what the Fed chair said. He is concerned about our uncertain economic future. It's about that 10%, right? Yeah. That 10% is more than triple what it was a few months ago. So at least in the short term, that is going to be inflationary. And this is Great Britain, our closest ally. Okay, so while they're boasting like, we got this deal going, like that's like saying, I opened the hottest restaurant in New York City, it's packed.
Donald Trump is more than happy to launch the stupidest trade war in history, but to be called out for it, that is a bridge too far. And it is the reason we saw Donald Trump melt down and attack several MSNBC hosts in an unhinged and really strange truth social meltdown. After not only did Lawrence O'Donnell call out his cognitive failure, but Stephanie Ruhle went off on Donald Trump for the stupidity of his tariffs. We're going to get into it all. But before we do, if I could quickly ask you to leave a like on this video, and if you haven't already, and you enjoy our channel, to hit that subscribe button. It goes a long way, and it really does mean a lot to me now. Before we get into that truth social meltdown for Donald Trump, we have to start with Lawrence O'Donnell, who caused Donald Trump's whole staff to panic and melt down with what he had to say right here.
This is the 26th day in a row in which Donald Trump has come out a total loser in the trade war that he launched, which he promised to end by negotiating 90 international trade deals in 90 days. Donald Trump made that promise 26 days ago and has negotiated exactly 0 trade deals. 0. The Trump score has been 0 every day of his trade war. Presidential failure could not be more vivid than that. And that's Donald Trump's own scorebook for failure. 90 deals in 90 days, that's what he said. He's got 0. Donald Trump now looks and sounds more exhausted of his own trade war and losing his own trade war every day, just exhausted by it. Losing his trade war seems to be aging him more rapidly than he might otherwise be aging now at 78. And Donald Trump is saying things now that he has never said before. Donald Trump appears to be losing more than his trade war. There are public moments now where he seems to be losing his mind, like when he sits beside the Prime Minister of Canada in the Oval Office and he describes his desire to seize control of Canada. We are now in the 7th day of Mental Health Awareness Month, and no one has ever made this country more aware of mental health every day than Donald Trump. Donald Trump is trying to cut over $800 billion from the largest mental health provider in the country, Medicaid. And then, of course, there's Donald Trump's own mental health, which has been called into question since his first presidential campaign, which led a group of 27 psychiatrists to co-author a book published in the first year of the Trump presidency titled The Dangerous Case of Donald Trump. 27 psychiatrists and mental health experts assess a president. Some of the co-authors of that book appeared on this program at that time and told us about what they observed in Donald Trump's public behavior that indicated he was possibly suffering from grave conditions, including malignant narcissist and sociopath. They warned us at the time, in that first year of the first Trump presidency, that everything they were seeing and that we were seeing that was problematic in Donald Trump's mental health was only going to get worse. They warned us. They agreed that Donald Trump's mental health could only move in one direction over time in his 70s. They have published new editions of the book in which more and more mental health professionals have joined in the analysis, with the most recent title being The Dangerous Case of Donald Trump. 37 psychiatrists and mental health experts assess a president. It could have been mental illness on display when Donald Trump said the "I don't know" heard around the world. That, of course, was on Meet the Press when Donald Trump was asked by Kristen Welker, "Don't you need to uphold the Constitution of the United States as president?" To which he said, "I don't know."
Donald Trump is a clown. Donald Trump does not know what he is doing. Donald Trump, through his own stupidity, through the clowns that he has surrounded himself with, is breaking our country. And largely, that is the point, breaking it. So people are distrustful of government breaking it. So Donald Trump can say government doesn't work, cut government programs, and give a bigger tax cut to him and his wealthy friends. But it's also just because Donald Trump wants to break off the pieces of government and give them to himself. And he's doing that because he's a narcissist. And it's not the only thing, obviously, wrong with his brain. He's also in cognitive decline, which his staff is not so happy when that's pointed out. According to this article from the Daily Beast right here, Trump aide loses it at MSNBC host for discussing president's mental illness. Donald Trump's top aide had a furious response after an MSNBC host questioned the president's mental health. MSNBC host Lawrence O'Donnell had called Trump's cognitive functions into question, speculating that his recent remarks in which he said he doesn't know whether it's his job to uphold the Constitution could be a sign of mental illness, or it could be a sign of early-stage dementia in a 78-year-old man. But the White House communications director, Stephen Chung, shot back at the veteran news anchor in a statement to the Daily Beast, accusing O'Donnell of clearly suffering from a debilitating case of Trump derangement syndrome that has rotted his brain. So the White House, not happy that the very obvious is being pointed out in more ways than one, because Donald Trump, like I said, melted down a little bit when Stephanie Fu called out what the Wall Street Journal, not just MSNBC, not just the libs with the Trump derangement syndrome, pointed out, and know to be true, that this is the stupidest trade war in history. So I want to take a look at what Donald Trump had to say in his meltdown, and then we'll take a listen to Stephanie Ruhle, because you're going to want to stick around for her whole takedown. I just watched an exhausted, highly neurotic Stephanie Ruhle spew. Lies about tariffs, as do many others, in order not to give me the victory that they all see coming. Few people know Stephanie Ruhle, but I do. And she doesn't have what it takes. Our deal with the United Kingdom yesterday was amazing for both countries. And in addition to everything else, British Airways just ordered $10 billion worth of new Boeing planes. We're going to make a fortune with tariffs. Only smart people understand that. And Stephanie was never known as a high IQ person. MSDNZ has become the voice of the Democratic Party, and they should be treated as a political advocate with all of the taxes and penalties from their ratings are terrible. But Brian Roberts and his crew should be forced to tell the truth. Make America great again. Yeah, not too shocking to hear. Donald Trump go back to the old IQ talk, even though Stephanie Rowe started her career on Wall Street being successful for understanding the thing. Donald Trump clearly doesn't markets trade. Oh Lord, and she broke that all down with Chris Hayes, Jen Psaki on a great call out of Trump right here.
Okay, if I had a nerdy study group about politics and policy, I'd want these two to be in it. I guess they're sort of in it. We're all sort of in it. Chris Hayes is, of course, the host of All In. Stephanie Ruhle is the host of The 11th Hour. Thank you, Chris, for staying around. Thank you, Stephanie, for being around early. I want to start with you, Chris. I mean, I watched your segment with Steve Leisman as he was describing this trade deal, not a trade deal, whatever we're calling it. Maybe we can redefine it. It was also a day where Jeanine Pirro re-entered the chat. Trump made some strange comments in the Oval Office today. You talked about and I talked about. What'd you make of today?
Well, I think the trade deal, I mean, I loved the clip of the China trade deal because I'd actually forgotten that one, so that brought me back. And of course, like, it never was anything. The memory I had today watching the UK trade deal was there was this Friday early in COVID where he did this thing in the Rose Garden where he brought all these CEOs out, and he did this whole dog and pony show, but like Google's got to have a test, like a new website, and then CVS is going to have tests in the parking lot. And like, none of it was true. It was all completely vaporware. Mm-hmm. And when you scratch the surface on this, like, trade deals take a long time to negotiate, A. They have a lot of details that are real granular policy details, B. And C, he cannot make a deal. there is no deal to be done with him because anything that's actually going to be binding is going to have to go through Congress. He's not going to do it. And the final thing, and this point that Steve made that I thought was important, is the 10% wall around the country. He is absolutely tied to. Everything else might be negotiable, but tripling the current baseline tariff is something he really wants to do, and that itself is a huge, huge problem in terms of the macroeconomic productivity of the country.
And Jen, I would just say that 10% is exactly why yesterday when everyone's like, I can't believe Jay Powell isn't going to cut rates. Remember what the Fed chair said. He is concerned about our uncertain economic future. It's about that 10%, right?
Yeah.
That 10% is more than triple what it was a few months ago. So at least in the short term, that is going to be inflationary. And this is Great Britain, our closest ally. Okay, so while they're boasting like, we got this deal going, like that's like saying, I opened the hottest restaurant in New York City, it's packed. Then you open the door and everybody eating in the restaurant is my family.
Yes,
right?
exactly.
Trump wants you to think, right? Trump wants you to think this is the first of many. And listen, he has to create this framework. He's a showman. His back is against a wall when it comes to trade. We are 3 weeks out. We know that these ports, less and less cargo ships are coming in. And the ones that are coming in have less and less cargo on them. We're 3 weeks away from our store shelves potentially looking like they did during COVID. So Trump needs to sort of change the narrative and say, we've got something going. And yes, so he has a framework for a deal with Great Britain and almost 200 other countries, and I haven't even mentioned China behind it, where it's going to be 10% or more, and they haven't even gotten started.
I mean, one of the things, even though it's a fake trade deal, I love all these analogies. There's so many you could just make up about this case. And to Chris's point, it takes years to negotiate trade deals. But one of the things that was telling today to me, and you talked about this a little bit, Chris, is there were British luxury car makers and others who were kind of celebrating out there, right?
Yep.
A bunch of people were celebrating like that. And then when Trump was asked about the dock workers and truck drivers who are worried about losing their jobs because imports from China have slowed, which is a huge, real issue, to Steph's points happening at the ports, he basically responded, that means we lose less money. I mean, it is a disconnection, maybe a misunderstanding of economics, but what did you make of that?
It was shocking, and it was shocking. I mean, it's shocking, not surprising, which is something you say about him a lot. But I mean, first of all, just on the politics of this, I cannot get over the fact that there was a multi-day news cycle of outrage because Nancy Pelosi had too much ice cream in her freezer during COVID.
Outrageous.
Like she's so out of touch. Like there's too much ice cream. Like
It was an expensive brand, Chris. It was a very high-end brand.
Yes, it was.
Okay?
It was
delicious,
a very,
but yeah.
But I mean, here's the guy who's like literally the golden toilet guy. Okay, there's the golden toilet, the golden stroller around, going to be like you got to give fewer toys and pencils to your kids. I don't care about the dock workers and the longshoremen. And I also think what's so striking about it too, and this is something that I think honestly Wall Street still hasn't gotten through their head, is that's not a talking point. Like when he says that's good, we're losing less money, he means it. Like he sees every dollar, US dollar, all all the industry that supports as essentially a loss. And if he's serious about that, we are in for a world of hurt, and he really does appear to be.
Okay, but hold on. I'm going to disagree with Chris on one point. Only
Please.
Because when the president said that this morning, we're going to lose less money, I actually sent that in a text to kind of all my Wall Street sources, many of whom voted for Trump, and every single person responded with like an exasperated, embarrassed emoji. Right. But what Wall Street does understand is many don't actually, I don't want to say they don't care if we fall into recession. Wall Street investors are different from people running companies. People running U.S. companies are devastated, right? If you run a small business in the United States, you are panicked right now. But for Wall Street, they're just trying to figure out what's the game and how do they get in on it early. Yeah. Because when they get a signal from the White House, they can just as soon go short the market as they can long. And when we talk about luxury British automakers who are celebrating today, you know who wasn't? Ford, GM, U.S. automakers who are saying, hold the heck on. If we're now going to bring in 100,000 British cars, it's going to be cheaper than it is for USMCA compliant cars that are partially produced here and in Mexico and Canada. They're the ones saying we're getting screwed here.
And Steph, you made this point to me earlier in a text, which I thought was interesting. I mean, he also seems to be getting a little skittish about tariffs. I mean, he talked today also about maybe reducing the 145% tariffs on China. He's kind of made some off and on comments about that. Do we think, and this is politics, this is the business community talking to him? Where's that coming from?
Okay, you're seeing more and more business leaders saying this is going to slide us into a devastating recession. And what we've seen with the president in the last 24 hours as it relates to China makes it look like he's potentially blinking. We saw the market soar today. Stocks, Bitcoin, right? The riskiest assets, because it was 24 hours ago. Trump said, we're not reducing these tariffs with China. No how, no way. And suddenly today he's saying, oh, maybe I've got some room. And also on China's side, a week ago, China said, unless we see some movement, we're not meeting. So there's a chance in the next 2 days we do start to see movement. Now, you're not seeing any U.S. companies say, Yahoo, and start to make big moves, but you are seeing Wall Street say, wait a minute, is something happening? Because also, read the tea leaves. Trump said today, stocks look really cheap, buy the market. And I'm not saying he's someone to take stock trading advice from, but the last time he said that was April 9th. The same day he put the pause on the tariffs, and that's what Wall Street's paying attention to.
Donald Trump doesn't know what he's doing. I don't really think we got to beat around the bush there. I think it's pretty clear to all of us, and the fact that it is, like I said, he is not too happy about. And I love that great. Let's make him unhappy. Let's make him melt down. Let's call them out. We're doing so on this show every single day. And if you want to support that, as always, you can hit that subscribe button. You can leave a like on this video. And if you stuck around to the end, you can drop a blue heart in the comments. And until next time, I'll see you soon.